Okay, it's time to make a new tier list. This is going to be the official version 5.0.8 Hellhalt tier list. On the left side, I'm going to do an early game, so waves 1 to 10, and then on the right side, I'm gonna do late game. There will be no combinations like Ferb and Wolverine. They won't be put in S tier just because of the combination. So that way, it's kind of fair. Okay, we're starting with Acolyte. I mean, early game, this unit is usable. It has almost no collision size. You can use it to pull the wave as well. It's just very inconvenient. It also costs food, so therefore it goes into C tier. And late game, it's just not usable at all. Then Apparition, it's an aura. Early game, it's too expensive. Has no DPS, no attack speed. It's still a useful aura for 10. Does decent amount of damage on 10 as well, so therefore I guess B minus. And late game Apparition is a really good aura, so therefore it goes into, I would say, A or yeah, let's go with A tier. Okay, then we got Aqua. I mean, for late game, again, you don't want to use this one. I mean, you can use it if you have nothing else for like 14 maybe. I don't know. You shouldn't use it mid to late game anyway. So therefore C tier and late game. And for early game, it's actually a really good unit. After level 9, it falls off really hard. But before level 9, it's a pretty good unit. You can have decent push at the beginning. Yeah. B. Elite Archer. I mean, late game is one of the best. So let's put it in A tier. I mean, to be honest, we can put Elite Archer in S tier for late game, because if you have it in late game, you always use it to res. I mean, it's probably the best unit to res with Seraphim anyway. For early game, it's too food constant. It's kind of a good unit, but it costs a lot of food. I would say it's B minus. Let's put it in B. I mean, it's really good on 7, really good on 5. It just costs a lot of food. Frost Dragon early game, not that great. I mean, it's super shit unupgraded. Upgraded, it's so slow. The splash is very bad. I mean, it has a nice spell. The Frost Armor is really good. It's only good for 10. Really? I mean, it's... I would say it's starting to get usable after level 7. So therefore I would put it in B minus in the early game. And for late game, it is probably one of the best units. If you have it, you can just stack it. It's one of the best tanks for late game, so let's put it in A tier. Then we got pigs. For the early game, pigs are really good. I mean, not really, really good, but they are good. Are they really good? They're usable in certain combinations, but we don't take combinations into account. They have a lot of collision size, they cost food, they have so low range. Actually, I just put them B minus for early game. Late game, you just don't want them. I mean, they're so bad. Then we got early game Skeleton. Fire Archer is a good alternative if you have no Pierce on 10. DM buff is always nice. I mean, in early game, you're not really using the DM buff, except if you maybe have like Hydra or Dragon or whatever. So therefore, we can put it in B tier. Late game, you really want DM. It's one of the best buffs for late game. The other units have no use, so therefore let's go with B+. Okay, next up we got Crabs. Crabs are chill. They're really good for early game. I would put them in B+ tier, simply because of the fact that you can sell them. You can keep them unupgraded all the way until 7. After 7, you can upgrade them for like medium armor, so it's really good on 8. You can full sell them, or you can just keep them as tank for 10. Yeah, it's pretty good. Late game, you kind of don't want them. I mean, if you have nothing else, sure. So let's put it in C tier. Captain, is a decent aura in the beginning, so let's go with. Wait, why is that? Wait, we swap our Persian to C tier here, because Captain is obviously better, but it doesn't belong in B tier. So let's go with this one. For late game, I mean it's an aura. You really want auras. It's a melee unit, so it kind of dies fast, but it gets resurrected. So let's go with B plus. Spitters, I quite like Spitters for early game. I would put them in B tier as well, because I mean they have high collision size, but they cost low. They have low cost. They have no food cost. They're decent. If you go with mid build, they're even better than the corner build for early game. Yeah, late game you don't want them. I mean they have a spell, but there's no point really. So let's go with. I mean they're still usable, so let's maybe go with B minus. Centaur, I mean. Let's go with B plus, just because it has a decent aura for the early game. It's very expensive, but nah, never mind. Let's go with B. For late game, I mean I never get Centaur for late game. Maybe I should. If you have it on your last roll, at least you should get some, because you know the more auras the better. Again, it's a really expensive unit. Attack slow. But because it has armor debuff, let's go with B for late game. Colts, early game, they're so shit. They're only usable on 10. If you go Colts before a level, all the way until level 8, you just leak on 8 because they're so bad on 8. So they're only usable on 10. They attack they attack fast, but then they use the spell and they lose like 5 attacks worth of. They take so long time to cast a spell that you lose like 5 attacks worth of dealing. So let's go with B minus here. For late game, they're air. They have a spell. They're ranged. They're really good for late game. So let's go with A tier. Okay, we got Spirits early game. I mean, they're kind of a last resort for early game. They're kind of good on 6, but they die fast, so I'm not a fan of it. Let's go with B tier here. For late game, if you get Spirits, Rest, they're kind of good. They're better alternatives, but it's definitely better than Centaur. So let's go with B plus here. Cyborg, D tier, it's just trash. Late game, it's the same thing. It's just fat. It's just fat, slow, has no purpose. Yeah. Then we got Priests, I think. Priests early game, you don't really want them early game. They're kind of bad. They're waste. It's a waste of gold. You just want DPS and tanks early game. No sustain. But for late game though, however, Priests are really good. I would say not get Priests before like at least when you have Seraphim. So let's say level 1 to like 17, they're still kind of unuseful, but then they become really, really OP, so let's go with B+. Messiah early game, there's no point in getting Messiah unless you have Fire Archers. So let's go with C. Late game, it's probably the best aura you can get, so easy S tier here. Griffin early game, shit. Late game, I mean... Let's go with B tier. I mean, if it's your last roll and you don't have anything else, you can spam Griffins because they actually do something, but you preferably don't want that. Then we got Druids. Druids are kind of nice. They have a good spell if you stack them. If you upgrade them, first of all the melee upgrade is useless. The range upgrade has a nice debuff for 10. I would say B plus. I mean, actually, never mind. Let's go with B because... Wait, let's put Centaur actually here. Yeah, this is better. And then for late game, I mean, you really want to have at least like 2 or 3 or 4 Enchantress. So let's go with B tier. Actually, B plus. Let's go with B plus. X early game are goated. I mean, let's put it in S tier. If you have X early game, They're good on 5, they're good on 4, they're shit on 6, then they're good on 7, they're good on 8, they're really OP on 10. So let's go with S here. For late game, I mean, they're kind of useful. Levels 12, really good. 13 can be nice. 14, it can be nice to have a barrier to protect your backline. Anything later than level 16, they're really useless, so you can just sack them into Seraphim. So because they have a purpose, let's go with B. Ents early game, useless. I mean, you can get them on 10, but it's better to have different units on 10 than stacking Ents. So let's go with C. Late game, I mean, they're kind of only good level 20 and onwards. Anything else, they're kind of useless, so therefore let's go with B tier. Copter early game, really good, because you want Pierce for 10 as well. So let's say we go with S tier as well. I mean, Copter on the late game, S tier as well. PV early game is just so OP. Let's go with A tier because they kind of fall off. Mid game, I mean mid early game, like wave 6 they're kind of bad, and then 7 they're kind of bad, and if you don't have them on spawn, they're kind of bad on 8 as well. I mean, they're decent but not super great. You never want to upgrade them though. So let's go with that. Late game, you don't want PVs. It's just bad. Ice Troll does nothing early game. It has a nice debuff on the upgraded version, like a slow, but it has so low range, so B tier. Late game, I would say B. Let's go with B tier. I mean, the more damage the wave does, the more counter damage they're gonna take, so let's go with B. Frost Wolves, early game, they're useful. If you stack them, they're useful. Else they have no purpose. So let's go with C tier, to be honest. Late game, again, you don't want them. Ferbs early game, really good. They give you a really good push, and then wave 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they're so bad. But because they have really good push, let's go with B tier here. Late game, again, you don't want them at all. They have no purpose. Gates, I mean, they're kind of mid. They cost a lot of food, but they're kind of good. So I think they deserve B tier as well. Early game, late game, you can use them because the summoned unit, the Menace, has a nice stun, like a 1 in 4 or 25% chance to stun. You don't want to stack them, but they can be really nice for boss waves and for 14 as well. So let's go with B plus here. Ghouls, Uberscheid on both game stages. Spider, you kind of want to have a Spider. I mean, why would you want Spider? Spider is really good on 1. No, that's a lie. Spider is kind of mid early game. They give you decent push. They're really good on 5, and then usually you full sell them. But because they have like this, if you build a Spider, you're like stable for a few waves. Therefore, we can probably put it in B tier here. Wait, I'm just thinking. Let's do some shifting here because I see the crap. Let's go with Aqua B plus. Elite Archer B plus. Yeah, let's go with like this. Yeah, Spider for late game. We don't want Spider for late game at all. Worst case scenario, emergencies, you can stack them for 13, but yeah, it's just no point. Gnolls early game, they have a nice purpose. Having nice spam, it's probably the best spam unit you can have for level 10. So therefore, we can put it in B minus. Late game, you don't want them at all. They have no purpose. Actually, that's not true. If you have nothing... yeah, whatever. Never mind. D. Goblin Brawler, shit unit, C tier, late game. Same thing. they're useful for 14. If you have nothing else, you can just stack them and hope for the best. But yeah, the stun goblin, I would say no purpose at all. I mean, it's the same. It's kind of the same as an end. So let's put it in the same thing as the 3. If you ever want to build them, it's probably for 10. You build like 1 or 2 to like stun, but that's it. Late game, again, no purpose. If you have on your last roll and you have like level 25, maybe you can stack them or spam them, but other than that, they have no purpose. So because of that single purpose, we can maybe put in a C. But yeah, mutants, I hate mutants. They're good, but I hate to build them. Therefore, let's go a B. Late game, it's probably one of the best units late game because they have so much DPS. So let's go a B plus. Grizzly early game, I mean, if you have not a single tank, you can maybe build one, but C. Late game, I don't see a point in getting them. They're too fat, they're too slow, yeah. I mean, let's go at C. Dead Dragon early game is kind of, I mean, it's decent. So let's go a B minus. Late game, this dragon is really good late game. So let's go B plus here. Goliath is useless early game. It is so expensive. There's no point early game. Late game is really good aura. You want at least 2. Because you want that armor buff the entire duration of the fight. So let's go B plus here. Mistress, I mean, it's debatable. I would say it's B minus. Late game, again, I'm going to put it in B because at least you want at least 1 or 2 of these because they have a really nice spell for unit waves. Harpies, again, there's so much better units to build than Harpies. They have a nice debuff on 10, but that's it. So because of that single debuff, C, early game, late game. Late game, they have a better purpose. Let's go a B minus. Actually, let's go a B. Yeah, let's go a B. Because they're air, they're kind of ranged. They have a nice debuff. Yeah. Frogs, shit. That's not true. They have an early game purpose. If you go Fangtooth, you can use them as spam. Therefore, let's go at B minus. Late game, you don't want them at all. Green Dragon early game, I would say B. It gives you a good start, safe start. Then you should full sell it because it has no purpose. Late game, you don't want them at all. D. These Warthogs, the Hawks. Let's go a B because they have somewhat okay push early game and then they follow really hard. Late game, again, you just don't want them. They're so useless. Zeus early game, I mean, you can use them to pull the wave. You have to stack them a lot to actually make use of them. So, I mean, let's go B. Late game, again, they have no purpose late game other than use it as a resible unit for Seraphim. But if you have elite archer, you're just never gonna use it. But because of the purpose of res, let's go with B. Knights early game, kind of meh. I mean, it's a good tank. They're expensive. If you have a really nice building pattern, they can be really useful. So let's go with B minus. For late game, I mean, I'm kind of twisted because you don't really want that many melee units in late game. But if you're getting melee units late game, it's probably one of the best. At least all the way until level 17. So because of that, let's go at B minus. Yeah. Komodo early game. They're nice. You have a slow start, but they're nice. Let's go with gate guards. Same as gate guards. B. Late game, you really want them. There's, let's go B plus here. They deserve a B plus. LOD early game, I would say A tier. No words needed, I guess. Late game, I mean, you don't want them. Easy C tier. Next up, turrets. Turrets, I mean, if you have nothing at all, you can just use them. I wouldn't recommend using it, but they have some purpose. Late game, I mean, don't get them. Late game, their damage falls off really hard. Even as a resable unit, it's kind of a bad unit, so don't do that. Plague early game, B minus because of the usefulness of the second upgrade on levels like 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and then 8, and then 6. Yeah, I mean, let's go B minus. Late game plague is a must. B minus. I mean, I would say A even because of because in the mid game it's so OP, and then late game you still have it, so it's fine. Oracle early game, I don't see a point in ever going Oracle early game unless you have like tridents or gate guards or whatever. So early game you can use it. I don't recommend using it unless you have the specific units for it. So let's go with B minus. Late game, I mean, let's go with B plus because it buffs your army so hugely. Mermaid early game, B, easy B. Late game, you B plus, I would say. Many people forget, or new players forget, that the Mermaid aura actually has a healing aura as well, and not just the Frost Shield. Yeah. Minotaur, shit unit. Let's go with C because, I mean, you can use it for 1, 2, and 3. But other than that, don't do it. Late game, it is a bad unit. I mean, they have a stun, so let's go with C. Warden early game. I mean, I'm gonna put it in B minus, and the reason why that is you have a shit level 1, then you're forced to upgrade it, which means you have no push. You hold 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, and then they're kind of falling off. If you want to hold level 6, 7, 8, whatever, with Warden, you're gonna have to build more than 1, and then you can't full sell it, so they're becoming useless. So let's go B minus. Late game, you don't want Wardens. Nope, they're useless. D. Golems are a nice tank for early game. Let's go B minus just because they have a nice gold efficiency for the amount of tankiness they provide. For late game, I don't see purpose. Don't get him. Yeah. Necro early game, I would say A. I mean, no words needed, I think. Late game, I would say B plus because you don't really use the Necrolites anymore. You just want that ghost. So B plus. New tank early game, B minus. They're too expensive. Late game, they're really good. I would even say A here because they have, I think, the highest damage in the game. They have almost the highest HP in the game. They are ranged. They have like an invulnerability. I don't know how you say it in English or spell it correctly or whatever. But they don't take damage after like taking 10 hits or some shit. And then they have like this bonus 500 damage or whatever it is. Yeah, A tier. Easy late game. Doppelgangers, I don't see a purpose. Let's go with C. Late game, they're even worse. D. Holy Maceman, easy D. In both sides, they're just fucking trash. Ogres early game, really nice spam. Really good push. That is a B plus ogre here. Late game, I would put them in C just because they have a stun and they can serve a purpose on the boss waves, especially level 25. War Chief, early game, they're kind of okay early game. They can give you a nice push. They proc more than a Sea Giant, so C. Late game, nope. Wait, that's a lie actually. I would even put them in B minus here because the upgraded version Troll has a stun, it has a nice tankiness. Yeah, let's go B minus. Actually, let's put the Knight in the C here. Yeah. Warlock early game, again, I would say B, because that's a lie. Let's go B minus. The only wave you actually want Warlocks is level 10. Everything below level 10, they're not worth the gold. For late game, it's a debuff. You really want them. So let's go with B here. Then we got Orcs. I mean, the Ferb, the Wolverine has decent early game. B minus. Late game, you don't want them at all. I mean, of course, if you have Ferb and Wolverine, they're both S tier, but again, we don't take combos. Okay, we're almost at the end. Good. Forsaken one early game, B minus, easy B minus. I mean, it's a good unit. It's too expensive though, and if it doesn't proc, it's just useless. Late game, it is the same thing late game as well. It can be really good resurrected, especially for 17. So because of that, let's go with B minus. Early game Vamp Aura, it's a shitty one. Let's go with C. It's very unit specific. I mean, if you have Tridents, they're kind of good. If you have Gate Guards, they're kind of good. Anything else, they're useless. Late game, again, it's an aura. You want them. Also for Seraphim and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, I'll just put it in B+. I mean, whatever. Peasants. Peasants are at least high B- here. Yep, B-. Late game, you don't want them at all. Okay, Footmen. I mean, they have a purpose early game, then they fall off. C. And late game, you don't want them. Mid game as well, you don't want them. Hellraiser early game is kind of good, all the way until level 8, and then they just die like a pig. So just because I have good early game, let's go with B-. Late game, I would say you can put them in C. If you have a good front, they're okay for the mid game. But after that, they fall off really hard. Slow aura in the beginning is one of the most OP auras, and in late game, I would say we put it in B+, because late game the slow aura doesn't matter too much. Wait, what is this? Wait, we had priests. Oh, dark priest. Early game. Let's go with B-. If you start building them, level 7, 8, 9, 10, they can do nice DPS. For late game, you really want them. They're really good units. B+ easy. Protons early game, really nice. Easy B. Late game, they're kind of shit. I mean, you have to stack adepts and hope for the best. But they have too low range, so D. Then we got riders. Riders are okay. They have, I mean, they cost low. They have low gold cost. So low gold cost. They cost food, but you can use them for the early game. So let's go with C. Late game, no purpose again. Melee early game, I would put them in B. You don't want to stack them. You just want a few. You can use them to pull the wave as well, because you really want Pierce for level 10. It's such an amplifier. So B, late game as well. Oh, wait, let's put it in B plus actually here for early game, because you really want that Pierce amplifier. Late game it doesn't matter too much, so let's go with B for late game. Sea Giant early, it's very bad early game Sea Giant level 1 and 2. Level 3 Sea Giant is really nice. Then you get Hydra for 4 or 5. They're shite on 6. I mean, they're kind of decent early game. Let's go with B. And then mid game, they're really good. But then after, what is it? Like after 15, so 16, 17, and so on, they're useless. So because of that, let's go with... let's go with B minus here. Seer early game. Again, you don't really want them. They're okay, so let's put them in B minus. Late game, they're kind of mid and late game, they're kind of good. So let's go with B plus here. Sabers early game, nice. I don't think B worthy because they're too fat. Yeah, you want a few. Unless you have mid build, and you can maybe stack them, but yeah, don't do that. Late game, they're just useless. Late game, they're too fat. Slaves early game are kind of annoying. They're very situational. There's some cases where you don't want slaves. There's cases where you absolutely want slaves. I think the best case scenario is when you have a unit like LOD or Necro early game, and then you reroll, and then you get like slaves on level 5. Then it's really, really OP. But it can also be shite because if you have nothing else, you really want slaves, so you go slave mods and you have no push. You have a shit early game, and then your team can't do shit anyway. So because they have good and bad purposes, let's go at B minus. Late game, I would say B, simply because they're really good all the way until you can use an Infernal, and then they become useless. And if you stack them late game, they kind of block your Seraphim. So that you don't really want that either, so let's go a B as well. Mine's early game, I mean late game, you just... I mean, they're okay. It's a strategy to go only mines, but it only works if you have a DM mode, I would say. So because they can be really useful in certain situations, let's go with C in both cases, early and late. Actually, B minus early game. Dragon spawn, I would say B minus early game, and we can put them in B for late game, because obviously late game you want flying DPS. Mercurial early game, I would say B minus. It's too expensive. Late game, mid game, you really want them. They're really good units. A. Thunderbirds, oh, that's easy. Late game, we don't want Thunderbirds. I mean, they have a purpose all the way until 16, but then they fall off. Early game, they're actually better, so let's go with B minus here. Actually, let's go at B, because if you stack Thunderbirds, then they can be really nice. Goblin tank early game, you really don't want them for early game. Let's put them again. We can put them in A tier again for late game already, because it's so OP. Early game, you don't really want them. It's too expensive. B minus. Leviathan late game, it's better. So B late game. Early game, again, you don't want them. Preferably, it's too expensive. B minus. They have a purpose though, but they're just too expensive. So B minus. Slow aura and speed tree. It's not the best. It's actually not a very good slow aura. So let's go with B plus. Late game as well. B plus. You want that speed. You want that slow. If you don't have it. Tribes early game, I would say B, because they're so low. They have low collision size. They do a lot of damage. They're very low cost. You can use them in the early game. Late game, don't use them late game. Troll Aura, Troll Aura early game is kind of mid. Wait, I'm lying. It's really OP, but as you don't have a lot of units in the early game, I wouldn't put them in S. I would put them in A. Late game, this one is S tier. Tuskar early game, easy A tier as well. You have 4-0 push on level 1. Then you're struggling for level 2 and 3, and then they can become better and better. For 6, they're not that good, but they're really OP. I would put them in late game as well in B tier, and the reason why that is because they have a slow on their attack. So if you have late game armies and you put a few Tuskars left and right and center, like let's say 10 or 12, then you can apply slow on almost all the units in the on the wave. So yeah, if you're late game and you have Tuskar, get a few. They have a purpose. Villain early game, let's put them in the same category. Actually, that's not true. Let's put them in B because the Soul of Hero is really useful early game. And the villain actually has a nice debuff late game as well. Same as the Warlock, the villain unit is must to have at least a few. Then we got Wendigo early game. You can use them, not recommended. It's too expensive. For late game, the same as the Knight. Violets are kind of nice. Getting a few, spreading the damage. Late game, no purpose. Wyverns early game, I wouldn't say they're the best. They become every wave with every next wave, with every new wave, they become better and better and better. So because of that, let's go with B tier. Late game, they're still B tier, I think. You really don't want to stack them late game because there's so many better units to have late game. Again, we're looking at the B plus A and S. Yggdrasil early. I mean, when I get Boom Tree, I almost always get the Boom Tree. So let's go with B. The reason why Boom Tree is good is because when the wave crashes on your army, you always have this huge bunch of units, and if you can get rid of this initial huge amount of units, then it's very easy to clear the wave. So what the Boom Tree does is it eliminates the huge amount of units that you have on the crash, resulting in a very easy way to clear the wave. For late game, you don't want, so you can stack them for like level 13, let's say, but then you really want to sack them. Worst case scenario, if I get them late game, I almost always get a few 3 of lives because of the mana auras you get. So because they have some kind of a purpose, let's go at B minus. Actually, let's go with B. Healing Doctor early game, S tier. Late game, not so much because there's too much damage, but you really want to buff your army with it, so B plus. Zombie, easy C tier. Late game, easy C tier. Okay, let's check. So early game, you really want the S, A, and B plus units. Is that correct? This is kind of a fair argument, a fair tier list, I guess. Late game, mid game, you really want S, A. Actually, B units are also really good for early game. So if you early game, you should go with S, A, B, and B plus and B. Don't look too much on the B minus. If you have slaves and you have a nice combination, actually let's go with B. Let's put them in B here. Let's take a look. Yep, these are very situational. B minus is very situational. Actually, if you have peasants, you should get some peasants. So let's go with them with B. Yeah, this is good. And then late game, you really want S, A, B plus, yeah. And you want some B. I mean, they're situational. You should get them at least a few. The B minus, C, and D, you really just don't want to get these units at all. Yeah, this is a good tier list. Let me know what you think. So again, left is early game, right is where's my fucking... Wait, let's do it like this. Yes, this is better. So left early game, right late game. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.